listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Welcome. You are at Second Wind Podcast. And the reason you are here today is I'm hoping to receive encouragement so that you will begin playing full out. And the first thing is get to know yourself. Now, I want you to be inspired because I want you to reach for the big dream. Not just think about it, reach for it and get it. And to inform you how to get your second wind. Life is all about getting second wind, third wind, fourth wind. So I want that experience, your experience on earth, to be full of second winds. Now, my guests, if you have not been with me before, are those wonderful women that are sharing, and some men, I must say, occasionally I let a few men on, but primarily they're women that have shared their stories so that they can make your journey easier. That's our purpose, is to help. We are all about connection and support and sisterhood. So thanks for being here today. If this is your first time, if not, thanks for coming back because we have another great show for you. We're going to be talking about so many faceted things about living death, living life, living trauma, and the list goes on. So I think you're going to find this podcast full of valuable information. So let me tell you about my wonderful guest this morning. Her name is Claudia Goetzelmann. Now, she is from Germany. Can you tell? Well, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a true global being with having lived on 4 continents. German born, she is now based out of Venice Beach, California, LA. If you've not been there, it's a neat place to be. At this moment, she is spending time in Germany in order to support her parents during COVID. Claudia spends most of her time living and traveling and working around the world as a fashion advertising photographer, which if you go to her website, oh my gosh, you're going to be so blown away by her. The way she has captured amazing pictures in amazing places with amazing models. They all look pretty good and extraordinary. In 2017, after a heart-wrenching divorce and death of her old self, as she calls it, she became a certified end-of-life doula. Is that correct? Doula. Yeah. End of 2018, she completed a spiritual life coach training and founded Permission to Bloom Coaching. She also is a yogi, grows her own veggies, and holds guided meditations. She is currently studying trauma and grief therapy with Dr. Gabor Mate. Is that correct?
Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As she would like to add this modality of tools and knowledge to her coaching practices. When asked, she says she is now combining all of her gifts, talents, and wisdom to help others live a more empowered, authentic life. Thank you, Claudia. I'm so pleased you are here with us today. We're just going to share so much.
Thank you for having me. That was quite an intro.
Well, you're quite a lady. Oh my gosh. I love looking at your website. I mean, honestly, y'all, if you never go to another website, go to Claudia's because it is so entertaining just to see the way you capture on film so many unique people and places and stances, and anyway, it's all. Is that your creativity? Do you do all the placing of all those marvelous models and so forth?
It's a big collaboration. It all depends on the job. If there's, art director or advertising agency or in a layout, or if it's a magazine editorial, and then I get to be very creative with my crew. Yeah.
Yeah. So where
Yeah.
did that start? In high school?
Oh
Were
no,
you always?
actually at the age of 4, I got my first camera. And
Oh,
and I always sort of wanted to do that, but my parents were like, no, 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 no. You have to, being German born, you have to do something solid, grounded, secure.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took a while. But I always had this curiosity and travel adventure sense in me. And I
Mhm.
think it just led me, when I grew up when I was a teenager, I took pictures. I went to over the mountains, the Alps to Italy, and I was just spending all my money and taking pictures and being on adventures. So it's really interesting to reflect back on all this.
Yes.
And um, in the last year and a half, or let's say 2 years, I really come to realize that I couldn't word this before, but I'm truly, I'm a people person. I love people. And I always had this gift, and I say this in the most humble way, to connect with others.
Mm.
And photography is the perfect tool because I lift my camera and I want something from you. And we have to establish this trust, and it's in a fraction of a second.
Mm.
So we have to, there's this connection. And I think it's one of the things I really value about this job.
Yes. Well, I'm interested in knowing, how does one get to the height that you are now, so well respected in your industry? That did you? I mean, how did you grow from a little photographer person to a really well known, respected artist?
I mean, this is well, thank you for the question. It's like multiplicity answer
Mm,
because, I mean, it brings me straight away like, what is success? I
yeah.
mean, I don't know if you're a rock star or a musician or an actor and you're maybe successful today and then not tomorrow, because it's also
Mhm.
such a fast-lived industry, the photography.
Yes.
But I mean, maybe, but to answer really truly your question, I think it's perseverance
Mm,
and really developing your own style.
mm,
And I think, again, I say this in the most humble way, I
mhm,
feel there's a way I look out into the world,
mhm.
and this is my way of seeing, and that's what the client wants. And I don't really waver from that. I mean, when you say you looked at the photos, because there's something a little bit whimsical, it's colorful, it's minimal, and it's a little quirky,
Mhm. I
but
like
there's
that.
this elegance, there's an
Mhm.
elegance to it, and I think it's really who I am. and
Yeah.
um and then because of the connection I make to the people, I feel like we get to play and capture this moment. And before, I mean, there's huge preparation, everything is thought through, but then once I get on set, I'm like, okay, here we are,
Mm.
let's play.
Mm. Well, did you ever work with somebody as an understudy, or is this just all been through your own growth?
I had in Germany, I had a professor who was sort of my mentor
Oh,
guiding
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But then I moved to Africa because my then boyfriend and me, we wanted to leave Germany.
Mhm.
And I could just sort of thrown into this world. And my sense of adventure and curiosity was there. I was like, wow, I get to photograph all these tribal faces. So that's sort of how it
Wow.
started. And then I
Yeah.
had an exhibit in Munich at the stock exchange, and the Nigerian ambassador came, and it was huge, huge blown up faces of these beautiful,
Oh,
tribal men and women with
yes.
their tattoos and their colorings. And I think that sort of put me on the way, in some
Yes.
form and way.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I love African artifacts. I really do. If you were to visit me,
Yeah.
you might see a few in my home. But yes, the strong faces, the worn faces, the weathered
Mm,
faces, the
yeah,
oh
so
yeah,
much
yeah.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
also, again, still there's this trust, right? They don't know me. I'm such a foreign looking person with a white skin and long nose.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what does she want? But then I don't know, I just loved that human to human connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's, oh, I'd like to see that exhibit. Where's that exhibit?
I
Um,
should pull out these photos again. I mean, this is, I've been talking about it recently, and it was all on film, and it's somewhere in some boxes, probably at my parents' house. So
yes.
on a
Yeah.
long, if I'm back on a long winter, if there's a long cold winter, and I happen to be back, I think this is what I need to do.
Oh, I do too. I vote for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you're and now you experienced a couple of life, I call them defining moments in your life. Certainly when we lose our love that we thought was going to last forever. It's that Cinderella principle I like to think of, where we all grow up
Mm.
with. Um, uh, that's traumatic, but you also lost your brother, and that was another traumatic time for you. So, do you want to share any of that with us? Why and how it affected you? And was
Yeah,
it your
it's
brother's death that came first?
my brother's death, yeah,
Yes,
came
yeah.
first. And it was very, very dramatic. And I was living at that time actually in Indonesia.
Mm,
And so and I've been living in Indonesia and then Singapore. So it was just, I felt when you live in these Asian countries, the philosophy of the people there and the approach really sort of seeps into one, because here in the Western world we have a very different relationship to death, right?
mhm,
And so it was a very traumatic situation because it was my brother and my mom went into a depression.
mhm,
And at the same time, and I came back and I stayed for months here and helped, and I organized the funeral. I mean, it was just, it's a long story, but
mm,
at the same time, I had this different idea of how I'm going to be with it.
mm,
And I
mhm,
think it really gave me that strength. And I always felt and still feel that he's around. He's part of me. I've probably
mhm,
made decisions based on his presence in me.
mhm.
And so I talk to him sometimes.
I love that.
Um, yeah, so it's and there's this sort of, maybe there's another life. We don't have to question why it happened. It happened. There's this acceptance and there's this grace of grieving.
Mhm,
And I feel grief will never ever go away. It's just about how we are choosing to be with it.
mhm,
And it can stop our own life, or it can give us actually energy and knowing that death at the end will come to all of us.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so much of so many times, and I think this is a hangover from the past for us. Um, we we want to rush through the death to get through the pain, so that we can go back to living, but without our partner or without our friend or
Mm,
without our brother.
right.
And I almost believe we rob ourselves if we don't take in the pain, get comfortable with pain. Who wants to get comfortable with pain? But it's part of living. And
Yeah.
we don't see death as an end, but a transition. I'm
Beautiful. I love
sure is
this.
what
Yeah.
you learned in Asia.
Yeah.
It is just a transition. And so anyway, it was yeah, I in working with people going through grief, it's just not those 5 steps of click them off. That I've done this. Okay, I
No.
got angry. I got this. I'm,
Right.
it's more about just sitting still with it. I think, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking at that.
And it's also we are in this society so afraid of pain. But I
Mhm,
feel when we are experiencing pain, there's also this aliveness in us. And I ask so often, how alive are you willing to be? And when
mhm,
we are truly alive, there will be some pain. And the pain is not necessarily bad. It's this pinch, but it shows us that we cared, that we loved that person, that there was an importance, right? That, yeah, and that we're missing. And that in itself is so rich and beautiful. And, but this is where we get lost. But when we can access that love, then we can be with this grief in a very graceful way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Now you do work with people now, don't you, through the grieving process?
Yeah. Yeah, so it changed over the last year and a half, actually a bit, because COVID, and I also went back to be a full-time student and studying now trauma and grief therapy with Dr. Gabor Mate. So I mean, it's taken on a whole different. I don't know how I'm on this. I guess on a deeper path or in a new. I mean, maybe I don't know how to say it. Yeah, a deeper path. It's just now I'm learning why there is drama to begin with, and where does it come from, and how we can heal it. And and that's is really also again looking at everything we are experiencing in our life, and not pushing it away, but really owning everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you might say you study the relationships with death and rebirth. So are you combining those two? Not necessarily.
No, so when I did End-of-Life Doula, maybe I should explain what an End-of-Life Doula actually is.
Yes,
It's a
please do.
it's a fairly new profession. So you have doulas which help to give birth when a baby comes, and so now there is a doula which helps to transition from form to formless. So it's basically a whole nother doula at the bookends. And so you could hire me, let's say you or some family member knows you got the news that you have 6 months to live, and there's so many questions, there's so many things which come up, and usually we're very, very overwhelmed. So I would come in and help you find a structure and ask all the questions of what it is you feel like you want to do to complete these 6 months, and I help you to hold you and make this ending as beautiful and personal as it can be. It can be from your legacy, maybe also like you want to go on a last trip, maybe you want to mend a relationship with a family member or a friend, to how would you like to be when it comes really to the last week of your life. Would you like to be by yourself? Would you what kind of environment would you like to be in? Would you like to have essential oils? What should it really look like? Maybe music. What is it? How you see this? And then also what is going to happen once you leave your body?
Right. Now, are you able to do this from distance?
No.
It's
I
in
know
person.
I mean, it's an in-person thing. Yeah. So I haven't really done this because of COVID. And then I also sort of transitioned because I started my midlife coaching practice, and I was like, I also want to really take these tools, what we engage with on the very end of life, and take them right into the middle of our life and ask these questions and bring it in, then so we can actually live a much better life in the here and now, instead of being on the hamster wheel and then realizing, oh my God, I haven't done all this. And I wished, this is the most heart-wrenching thing what people say.
True.
They're like, I wished I would have loved more. I wished I would have traveled. I always wanted to go to this location. Oh, why did I not reach out to my friend? Or, all these things.
Right.
So, but if we bring it into the now and really understand that this is such a short journey,
yes,
then we can step in. And then when it really happens, because it will, then we can say, wow, I actually lived an amazing life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people also, the older we get, we can have flashbacks looking at other people and their achievements, and we almost belittle ourselves, thinking, well, we didn't do everything she did, and it's verging on a little jealousy in there. But I think it's also selling ourselves short in not being able to see ourselves in the mirror and look at
Yeah.
us as we have the advantage of looking at others. We don't know
Right.
their personal life. We don't know the pain they've had, but we do know us, and we do know what our path has given us. And it's
Yeah.
given us a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so, I talk about this a lot because social media really pushes us into this perfectionism, and
Mm.
we're sold this idea that other people's lives are just so much better than ours. And and a lot of depression actually steers from this, especially now on top of all what's going on with the COVID, right?
Yes.
And so, but if we come to realize we are actually truly enough as what we are, then we take this boundary and this wall away through a process, and we can really shine our light. And that when we shine our light, everything is energy. People will react to us differently. And they're like, wow, maybe I have nothing, but I have this radiant energy, and people want to connect with that person because I'm like, oh, I feel so good when I'm near you.
Yes. Yeah.
And the fake eyelashes or whatever doesn't matter. Shiny
Yes.
car,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
I mean, bling bling. I mean, I'm just making a silly example, but
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
much of that. If
It
we
is.
just really can step into that, seeing our each other again, like soul to soul, meaningful relationships and connections. And I think COVID has really shown us that so much. That's what we yearn for. And
Mm,
yet we're so afraid of being vulnerable.
mm. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
fascinating.
Yes. One of the teachers that kind of pushes us back on being vulnerable is, of course, the experience of divorce, which both you and I
Mm,
have been through. And I think there's a big thing about trust there that kind of
mm,
bites us in the where. And it's really important. I think it's hard to recapture that after you've had an experience like that. Um, so, what was the difference in the grieving that you had, that type of separation, and the separation that you had through divorce? There's grieving, but it's different.
it's different.
Can
Yeah.
you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, because, it's actually, and maybe it's even harder because the person hasn't left the planet.
Yes.
It's
Hmm.
different. It's a very different death.
Hmm.
And I think our lives change in a fraction of a second. And for me, I remember when my ex-husband said, I don't want to be with you. And it was just these words, and it was literally probably 10 seconds. And
Mm.
I felt how everything just sort of sank into me and collapsed. And I knew it was just going to change me.
Hmm.
And then, so but it was extra hard because he wasn't dead, but he was dead.
Yes.
He became a foreigner, a stranger, a
Hmm.
person I didn't even know his actions. And we were together for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So it was so fascinating. It was like, wow, I thought I know this person. But then that moment changed everything.
Right.
Yeah.
That I have heard and read, and you may have also, that when you hear that, we return to our very first rejection. And did you
Mm.
feel that? Did you go to that little girl that had once been rejected in any way?
I think, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that, right? This is exactly the
Yeah.
work I'm studying right now
Yeah.
with, the compassionate inquiry, because yes, the rejections, when we may have not, were not able to deal with right now, it's really established, and who's really hurting, it's that little girl or the little boy. But often we don't know that is because, so basically what happens, when we need to survive, we're little children, and
Yes.
we need to attach, we need love, we need food, we need shelter. So if we don't get that, our personality changes, there's an adaptation. And so that means that we as little people cannot be authentic because we still need to survive. And it's
Yeah.
our surviving mechanism. this new way of being, and it works until when we're adults. Usually it becomes the roadblock. And then because it's been with us for so long, we believe that this is actually our personality. It's fascinating. And when I mean, this is, again, it's not easy work. It's true heart-wrenching work. But when we are able to go there and see why we are the way we are, why we react the way we are, why we're made, let's say, in codependent relationships, why we numb, why we have addictions, why we do certain things or don't do certain things, why we work